Hello and welcome back to another Indiverse video. Before we get started, I wanted to go through a quick reminder of who we are. Indiverse is an online open marketplace where you can buy and sell the latest and greatest indie tabletop role-playing games right now. So for gamers, you don't have to wait 6, 12 to 18 months for a new and unique board game for game night. And for designers, you don't have to spend all your time, money, and energy hosting your own online store because Indiverse lets you keep up to 90%. That's right, 90 of all sales revenue. So you can spend more time and energy in the places that they're needed, like making new games or enhancing the ones you've already got. So if you're looking for a new game for game night, or just looking to share some of your amazing creations with the world, make sure to check out Indiverse.io. That's INDIVERSE.io. Or you can reach out to us directly at hello@Indiverse.io. All right, plugs over. That's amazing. Hope you all enjoy, and we can get into the video today. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Across the Indiverse. We have, as always, an amazing guest from the local Australian community. We have Stevie Schafer here joining us today. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing wonderfully. It's a beautifully cold Melbourne day, so look, we love it here.
It is indeed cold.
Yeah. So we hope you've got something nice and warm to drink, and that for you at home as well. But let's start off by introducing yourself. So give us the rundown. Who are you? What do you do? How are you involved in the gaming community here in Melbourne?
Sure. So I'm Stevie. I am the founder and current president of the Melbourne Queer TTRPG Community Incorporated. I am the co-host and producer of the Aussie Roll Call podcast, and I am also a professional GM.
It's a laundry list of little things to go through.
Yes, I heard the word niche and ran the other way.
So the Melbourne Queer TTRPG community, how did that come about? What motivated that sort of creation? I mean, obviously it's something big and important.
That's a really great question. So back in, it would have been late 2016, early 2017. So we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary now. I decided to start the Melbourne, but at the time it was the Melbourne Queer. Was it the Melbourne Queer D&D tables or something like that? Because I was playing D&D and there just wasn't really after a couple of unpleasant experiences at a local game store, I decided to start what was initially just a Facebook group for people to find tables to play at. And then it expanded into like a Discord server, and it expanded beyond just D&D and into other tabletop role-playing games. And yeah, we took the leap and incorporated at the start of this year. So I got on board an amazing committee and board who have done wonderful things since our incorporation. Like we've applied for several grants, we've won a grant. Yeah, it's just been a massive journey, and it's taken me places that I wouldn't have suspected. We've run events, and we're looking to run more events as well. COVID kind of killed a lot of the events that we were running, but we are ramping those up again, especially with the grants that we've been getting. So that's been really helping to make sure that we can provide services that our community really want to see.
What kind of events do you have coming up or anything planned? Is there anything super exciting that you're looking forward to?
There are super exciting things. So the thing that we announced last week, and it has unfortunately already sold out, is 2 Thirsty Sword Lesbian campaigns with professional GMs, catered, one online, one in person. And yeah, it took less than 8 hours for us to nearly sell out, and then we were completely sold out within like about 48 hours. So there was a lot of demand for that particular system. Yeah, we were very lucky to get a grant from Lesbians Inc., which is like a national organization. And yeah, so we're like being able to like pay our GMs and pay for event space and pay for a little bit of catering. So it's been really wonderful to be able to sort of like give back to the community in that way. We've been able to have like very affordable, deeply discounted tickets because of that funding. So that's part one of that event. And then in October, we will be running some Thirsty Sword Lesbian one-shots, but we haven't got the ticketing page up for that just yet. So that is coming down the pipeline, but we should have 4 one-shots, I believe, 2 online, 2 in person. But that will be after PAX, sort of towards the end of October, I believe. I don't have the dates in front of me. But as part of that, we're doing a live stream with Let's Roll for Dragons on Sunday, the 30th of August, where myself and some of the committee members and some of our GMs and community members will also be playing Thirsty Sword Lesbians. So that should be a lot of fun too.
It's been on my radar for the longest time to finally get together and have a game of Thirsty Sword Lesbians. if not just for the title and how amazing it is alone. Obviously, it's kind of very much on the branding for the community. But what has drawn... Yeah, it's like, it's right in the title. Like, you can't avoid it. Wondering what drove you to that game specifically outside of like the other like great queer representation games that are out there? Is it just the verboseness of it? How like iconic it is? One of the like big ones that sort of like leapt out. Why that one?
That is a really great question. I think we had an inkling that there might be demand for it. So I think it was last year. It might have been, I want to say it was during Pride Month. It might not have been. Masters of Alchemy, which is the group that has a lot of professional GMs under their banner. They ran a Pride event where we had one table of Thirsty Sword Lesbians and one table of Big Gay Orcs, which is a one-page RPG by Grant Howard. It's a great game, but the Thirsty Sword Lesbians table sold out pretty much instantly. And so the table that I ended up with, because I was running Big Gay Orcs, was a table of friends, plus Logan Timmons, who is a very popular, very well-known game designer in the local community. So it was a group of friends and Logan, and the group of friends had missed out on playing Thirsty Sword Lesbians, so they came to play Big Gay Orcs. They still had an amazing time, but yes, there was definitely like we wish that there were more tables of this. And so I was like, okay, it seems like we had an inkling that there was demand. And so when we saw that there was funding from Lesbians Inc., that there was grants open for that, it seemed like a no-brainer to put together Thirsty Sword Lesbians and asking for grant funding from Lesbians Inc. and sort of like put those two together and put on an event specifically, for the slightly underrepresented like sapphic community broadly in Melbourne. And yeah, it's gone gangbusters so far. It's people are really excited about it, really looking forward to it. And yeah, like I said, the campaign sold out so quickly. I was panicking because we were like 4 weeks away from the event. And anyone who's ever run an event knows that 4 weeks is like the minimum time you want to give yourself to get like even a small event up and running. So I was like, I just need to get the sales page up. I need to start promoting it. Did one push and then it sold out. And I was like, well, I don't have to stress about that now. I guess it's done.
Yeah,
now I just have to stress about, actually executing on it. But it should be good.
Look, it's always the stressful thing, and like you say, I mean, like every forever GM DM, we all know that we work best under pressure. So like when that session is only a couple of days out, that's when all the magic starts to happen. So look, we have full faith that you'll get there and have an amazing time.
No, we will. The committee that's helping me put it together have been absolutely phenomenal. In fact, one person who's on the committee was one of the people who came to the Big Gay Orcs game. So
fabulous.
It definitely, things just definitely fell into place for that.
That's awesome. Also, side note, I don't know why they called it Big Gay Orcs and not Big Gay Bugbears, because like it just feels like it's like more on the nose, like opportunity missed.
I don't know. You'll have to ask Grant Howard if you ever get the chance. Why? It's like I have one specific question for you.
Yeah,
about one of your many one-page RPGs.
Yeah. None of the big ones or anything massive or anything you might be working on. I just have this specific niche thing that I need to ask you. Nothing else, and then I'll leave.
Yeah. And he probably designed it in like an afternoon and just sort of like, this is fine.
Yeah. Oh, I bet that's the case. Or like it was for a jam or something like that. Yeah. The amount of like, and like I bet even himself, he's probably thought of that once or twice. I'm like, how did I miss that?
Yeah. Like the original name that I had for the Thirsty Sword Lesbian campaigns was Sapphic Nights, but it was spelled night as in nighttime.
Yeah.
And then I think it might have been Kate O'Sullivan on a recording of the Aussie Roll Call podcast. It was like, why didn't you call it, Sapphic Nights as in KNIGHT? And I'm like, I don't know how I missed that. And I definitely stole it. So credit needs to go to Kate for coming up with that, because,
we're all guilty of it. Like just missing the thing that's right in front of our face, especially when it comes to TTRPGs, because sometimes you just sort of honor like a writing role or a creative role, even just like the improv role behind the screen. And someone points something out to you like, it's going to be a bad recurring joke through the rest of this campaign. Yep. Yeah, lighting buildings on fire is one that happens in my campaign way too often. And I don't know whether that's me or the people I bring into fire.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I do have a campaign setting where people tend to bomb factories or mining sites, but in fairness, the campaign setting is kind of built for that kind of monkey-wrenching shenanigans, so I shouldn't be surprised that it happens.
Look, fair. What system is that where there's free reign to go bombing things like that?
I think it's just D&D, but they find creative ways.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
short campaigns, I tend to give them a little more leeway to do cool stuff because I'm like, you're here for a short time, so you may as well have fun.
No long lingering like repercussions for this that I'm going to have to think of. Fantastic, guys. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll just ride the wave.
Exactly.
So how can people find out about the Melbourne queer TTRPG community? And do you know if there's ones across the rest of the country, or is it mainly just here that there's a big
I
one?
think I don't know about the rest of the country. I'm pretty sure that, like I know of ours, but I haven't seen anything for like other major capital cities or any other states. But like if people want to find out more about the Melbourne queer TTRPG community, they can just head to melbqueerttrpgs.com. And they can find everything there. Or if you just Google our name, we should come up. So easy to find. And like we have all of our upcoming events listed on our website, and where you can, if you want to join our Facebook community or if you want to join our Discord, there are links there as well. And we also have a newsletter too that we send out very, very occasionally, usually with like major updates or like big events and things. We promise we don't spam. I don't think I've sent a newsletter in like 4 months. So except for the one that I did recently for the Thirsty Sword Lesbians campaign, but like before then it was like a 4 month gap. So we don't spam.
Amazing. Well, we'll grab that link from you and chuck it into the show notes as well. I've already like opened on the other panel like Thirsty Sword Lesbians to like grab on drive through for later because I'm like, I just need to grab it. I just need to. It looks too much fun.
The art is amazing. It is a beautiful book.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
For that, if nothing else, just for the beautiful artwork on it, I would happily take it.
That is half of my RPG shelf. I don't know about you. It's like I just buy it because it's pretty.
Yeah. Look, you definitely called me out on that one. I've got a couple there. Like, but to say that, the couple that I more recently bought, which was like Eat the Reich and Cottage Core Critters, like they also are fabulous games. So like, if I can get both, I'm happy, very happy. We'll go into more of the GM stuff. So you're a professional GM. So
I am. Yes.
So that means that people will hire you to run gaming sessions for them. How did you come about? How did you get to wanting to do that and I guess succeed at doing it?
That's a great question. And I think it's like a lot of people. I didn't really start out with it sort of in mind. Like my background is very much not professional GMing. Like I didn't even realize that TTRPGs were a thing until my 30s. So, I've definitely come to this sort of much later in life. But like once I discovered TTRPGs and got into playing, I very quickly fell into the forever DM sort of seat, as many DMs tend to do. And it was just people asking and badgering, going, will you do this? Do you want to do this? Like, we'll pay you if you want to run games for us. And, for a while I was like, no. I enjoy doing it for free. It's fun for me. And then I eventually started to take it seriously. I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I will take on, at least I took on like one group as some clients. And then I got connected with I was connected previously with the person who was running the games at Fortress and came on board as one of their DMs. And yeah, it's just kind of gone from there, really. So I have, not only the games that I run through Masters of Alchemy, which include the games at Fortress, and I get clients through Masters of Alchemy sometimes too. We do events with them. I also have like my own side of things. Like people can contact me like separately from Masters of Alchemy. I also have Start Playing, which I sometimes run games on. Like I have a consistent group from there. Yeah, it's just kind of ended up being like basically its own part-time job. Between 2 to 3 days a week most weeks. I'm doing professional GMing, so it's. Yeah, it happened kind of accidentally. It wasn't really well planned or well thought out. I kind of started doing something and then ended up being paid for it, which seems to be the way that I do things. It is in my history and my DNA, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if I have any like advice for people if they want to get into professional DMing, because I was just like, I just kind of fell into it and just kept going, and people offered to pay me, and it's just gone from there.
Look, great. I think it's a good thing, a good problem to have when you're doing something that you're so passionate about. Like between my, like previous jobs and now starting Indiverse, I've had the inclination a couple of times, like, should that be something that I look at doing? Because I've been DMing for a long time, like 12 years now, I think. Like it's been so long. And I was like, well, how do you even start that? So like, I guess you just kind of do it.
Yeah. And like, I was kind of already set up for it in a lot of ways as well. Like I had already run my own business for approaching 10 years by the time I started DMing. So like I already had like an ABN. I could already like invoice people and take money and stuff for things. So I already had like a little bit of that architecture and that experience from running my own business before. going into professional GMing. So I guess some of that logistical hurdle was a lot easier for me than it might be for someone who hasn't got that. Yeah.
For GMing professionally, what was the thing you thought would be the hardest that actually turned out to be really easy?
Interesting. Harder thing. Something I thought would be the hardest. I think the thing that I thought would be the hardest would be finding and maintaining long-term clients, and that hasn't really been an issue. Sometimes you might have, clients for like just a one shot or, a very short campaign. But like I have clients that I've had for, 6, 7, 8 years,
Yeah, wow.
tables that go that long. So not necessarily the same campaign, but like, returning customers. So customer retention has been in some ways easier than I expected. Customer acquisition has its ups and downs. But, a lot of that is dependent on how much money people have to spend on, entertainment. As much as I love to say that, TTRPGs are kind of like this community building and bonding thing, and to a large degree they are. If people don't have a lot of disposable income, they're less likely to want to pay for professional GM. So, there is that as well.
Do you pick what games you're going to be running, or do people bring them to you as like a, hey, would you mind learning and running this for us? How does that work?
Generally, I get to pick what I'm running. And, there is sort of like that balance between what do I want to run and what do I find easy and comfortable to run and what people actually want to play. So, as much as I would love to, learn and run a bunch of, new systems, the truth is a lot of people do want to play the Coca-Cola, as I think you said before we started recording, of TTRPGs, which is D&D. So I do tend to just run a lot of that because from a customer acquisition point of view, it is the one that people are most likely to want to try because it's the one that they've heard about. So there is that, and it is the system that I probably know the best and the one that I can run with the least amount of effort, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Just simply because it is so familiar to me. But that being said, I do run other games, including things like Call of Cthulhu, or I've even, been paid to show people how to play Village Song, which is technically a GM-less game. So
you got to play that one. Great.
I got to play that one. But, it was like I've read the rule book, which if anyone's picked up a copy of Village Song, it's, a small little box. You can probably see it on the shelf behind me. It's a small little box. The rule book is very light. And you're just answering prompts on cards, really. And like you can go as deep into the role playing as you like, or you can play it more as like a prompt story game. But yeah, there's that. People have paid me to run campaigns of Good Society.
Love that.
What else? I've stepped in to do a little bit of Night as well, as sort of like an intermediary DM between other things. Yeah, so it just really depends on what people want. I've tried to, on Start Playing, get campaigns of Aegon going. No interest.
Okay.
From the community. I was like, oh, yeah, because for those of you who don't know, Aegon is very much a game based on Greek mythology. Everyone sort of like has like patron gods and whatnot, and it's a journey of trying to find your way home, very much inspired by the Odyssey, and it's something that being a classics major, I was like, I really want to run this game, and I really would really love it if it was I could add it to my repertoire. And like I've run a couple of like free introductory sessions to Aegon, and people have loved those, but they've never quite translated into ongoing customers. So you are at the whims of the market to some degree.
Yeah. There's a, and I've noted this with just a couple of the games that we support, specifically like Those Who Dare and Striker. There is the niche of niches, which is TTRPGs and like people who enjoy them. And then there's like those who are like into a very specific type of TTRPG. So like Aegon, or those that are in that historical fiction. Then there's like that like heavy sci-fi orientation, not like Starfinder, but like a classic sci-fi story. People who are into that, they're like, that's the only thing I want to play. And they love it, but they just, again, the niche in a niche in a niche, which is tricky sometimes.
It is very tricky.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing that someone out there is going to do. Specifically go after the one or both of those two niches and be like, cool, we're only running these games forever. Let's have some fun. That'd be great. Yeah. Great business opportunity for someone out there.
I think so. And like, I don't want to say like it's entirely the market's fault, because I don't think that's true. Like there's probably things I could have done in like my marketing and my messaging and stuff that would have improved my chances. But I like it when there's not that much friction between getting someone excited about something and them coming and wanting to play something with you. Like if it takes a lot of convincing, does it feel as like mutually like exciting in a lot of ways? If I've had to sort of like convince and drag people kicking and screaming, clearly they're not here to have a fun time.
everyone wants to start with D&D. I've been on record many times saying it is the Coca-Cola of TTRPGs because everyone knows it. It's very familiar. Most people who, and our very first interview, Mark Barron, who's the creator of Night, the game you've stepped in to run, he and I have admitted that even when we're going to play another TTRPG, for those who have no idea what that is, we just say, hey, we're going to play D&D, because that is an easier thing to just, for someone to understand, to say, I'm going to go play a TTRPG, or name the TTRPG they're going to put, because they'll have no idea. It's a blessing and a curse. We take it. We take it.
It is. I do think that there is a little bit more cultural awareness of TTRPGs in general than there was, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but it's still relatively unknown to a lot of people unless you are, specifically in nerd spaces, then yeah.
There was a amazing clip that I saw probably a year or two ago now. There was an actress, and I'm gonna just butcher it completely, and she was approached and asked, she's done DMing for many, many years, and her parents asked her, what is it about? Like, how do you do it? What is it? And she just started narrating a story to them and being like, cool, you've got a bow, you're in the forest at night, and you can hear something rustling in the trees. What would you like to do? And like, I think taking that barrier down of like, you need to, because TTRPG books are massive. Like,
yeah,
this is an undertaking and a half to read every time, and that's a full A5 size printed book. Like, that's daunting to think.
It is,
I have to
considering
go through all
like
that.
before I started running TTRPGs, like I would pick up a board game that had a chunky, rule book and be like, this is a lot.
It is, and like taking that barrier away means like, well, I don't need to know any of this. Like the people I'm running currently through a short campaign, we made character sheets together. I sent them like the little players a cheat sheet thing with like your actions, bonus actions. This is stuff that they need to sort of understand. I'm like, cool, that's it. Please don't read anything if you don't want to. We will learn as we go, because just by playing the game, you learn how and where you can do everything and anything. And I think that's honestly the greatest way to teach them, is to teach by doing.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's another reason why I love the particularly smaller games, like
Yes.
one-page RPGs. Going back to, I think it was probably Deborah Ann Wall, because I think I've seen her present something like you're in a dark forest, you see a rustling in the trees. What do you do? I think I've seen her talk about that. But I particularly love like one-page RPGs that can be like very accessible. The famous one is obviously Honey Heist, but there are a million in that genre. Some of the games that story brewers have put out, particularly the little box games, I think are a really great bridge between board games and TTRPGs for a lot of people, because they are more of like the story prompt kind of things. It's like, you are playing this character, here's a card, answer the prompt on the card kind of deal. I also really love The Score by Steve D, which is, takes 20 minutes to play, because, people get intimidated by like the, we're going to be playing for 6 hours, this big epic game, but you can pull out a copy of The Score at like a very casual event and play that. And, as long as, everyone has, some familiarity with heist tropes, The Score is really easy to play and run, and it's really accessible for people. So I think there's a lot of great movement in some of the smaller games, like I was saying, one-page RPGs, card-based games, that kind of thing, to really break down a lot of those barriers.
I think the greatest thing that I could think of, and I think I was talking to Steve last year before, unfortunately he passed away, about his game, and he's like, yeah, I like having games like short form stuff that you don't have to have read anything like or know anything about this specific game, but you need to know the tropes of the genre. I'm like, the greatest prerequisite to turning up to the score is like, go watch Ocean's 11. Like, you can watch the original, or you can watch the redo with George Clooney. Don't care what they are. That's going to give you just enough of like the shenanigans, the, oh wait, there's more behind everything. And that's all we need to know. You bring that kind of energy, just go watch the film, turn up, we'll have a great time.
And I just love the movement towards like making games, a little bit more accessible on that front as well. Definitely no hate to like the big, in-depth games with lots of mechanics and lots of lore and stuff. Those are great too. But yeah, that niche of, those more story prompt games, like I said, that bridge between card game, board game, and TTRPG, I think that's a really amazing place to explore TTRPGs from.
I've recently got a chance to play 1000 Rats to Farah City, and that looks like another beautiful crossover of those two genres, because it's a board game like unequivocally. Like you're playing on the board, you're rolling dice, moving around, but the amount of roleplay elements that you can bring into the game, it's as light as or as heavy as you like. I think is something that I'm really excited to play again and again and again for the people that I know who have an idea but aren't quite wanting to commit to super long, like to something either super long, but they like mechanically heavy games. So like I think this is going to be like the perfect bridging for me to sort of get to those people as well. And also 1,000 Rest of Our City, where you set your own goal. I'm making cheese empires as far as the eye can see. Like there will be nothing but empires of cheese everywhere.
There's definitely a lot of richness in that space, and it's good to see more coming out of it because it's something that I'm really excited by.
I can't wait. So you professionally DM, you're running the Melbourne Queer TTRPG community. You also host and do some work with the TTRPG Writers Guild. So, I mean, that obviously helps with like the campaign creation for both other avenues we talked about. So how did you get into the Writers Guild? And what is the Writers Guild as well for people who might not know?
So the TTRPG Writers Guild is a monthly meetup. Currently we're meeting at Elder Gods and Dragons, which is in Carlton, Nam. And we get together for 3 hours on a Wednesday night, and we have a writing warm up, which we do at the beginning of every session, just to sort of like get rid of the cobwebs of the day and sort of like do that action of writing and getting yourself into a creative state. Like there's no sort of like I usually bring like a printout from Atlas Obscura of something or a poem. And get people to choose what they want, and then I might give them some sort of prompt, like write a location based on this, or here's a picture of someone, make an NPC based around this for whatever system. It's very loose, or write whatever just comes to mind. Like it doesn't have to be TTRPG related. It just has to be sort of like let's move through, just brute force that. Those cobwebs away and get ready for creativity. So we do that. It's only very short. We only, tend to write for like between 5 and 10 minutes. I prefer to do it longhand, manually with a pen and paper, because I find that is really good for me. Some people use computers for that. And then afterwards we debrief, we sort of go around and say, what we wrote about, what was inspiring, we sort of have a bit of a reflection and debrief. And then we go into a series of writing sprints. So it's sort of split up between half an hour and 45 minutes, roughly, for each sprint. And we go around and we say what we're working on at the beginning. It's like, I'm going to be working on, reworking the wording of my mechanics for my system, for example. Or, I've got to write a primer for this part of my game. Or, if you're working on just like a campaign, it might be like I've got to come up with 10 NPCs to fill out this tavern or whatever. And so we go around, we share what we're working on, and then we go into the writing sprint where people work on it. And it's really cool insofar as people get that accountability. Like they've said, I'm going to go do this. And then they do that. We get people who are like, I brought in something that I haven't worked on for months and I've been struggling to pick it up again, but I'm coming here so that I actually get it done. Or we get people who are just like really excited to work on stuff. So it's sort of like, it can be both. And then at the end of the time, we sort of go around and we debrief. We, talk about any like issues that we've had, or, if people want ideas or want to share stuff, they can. And if at any point, usually like in the third writing sprint, if people want to swap work with each other and sort of like read that and then discuss and sort of give feedback, they absolutely can as well. So there's also that. We also have like a list of resources, which has, not only how to, write TTRPGs or, write modules. There's also like big lists of, where you can get either like get stock imagery, like either for free or paid, that kind of thing. We have a very strict no generative AI for the Writers Guild as well. So yeah, it's really important to provide that document of resources too. Sometimes people will do like short presentations on things, or give out like here's how to write an antagonist kind of handouts, that kind of thing. But yeah, that happens every month. Sometimes we have special events. Like I think we had an online event with Hugh Hain, who taught us the basics of how to use Affinity. So how to use Affinity Publisher, because that was something that people were coming to the guild with quite a lot, is like, how do I make my creations? How do I take them from, Word or LibreOffice or Google Docs and actually make it into like something that's pretty? So Hugh gave a presentation on that was very well attended. Yeah, so that's kind of the Writers Guild in a nutshell. There's also like unlimited tea, so that you can just constantly drink tea until we're done, depending on how sensitive you are to caffeine. We do have there is herbal tea as well, but
Okay, well,
I'm a tea
just on the
fiend,
tea.
so
What's your go-to tea? I'm a ginger, anything with ginger in, or like any Eastern tea. So like the oolongs, your jade teas, your green teas. Oof, delicious, delish.
I really love a good chamomile tea, and I also really love either an English breakfast or a the extra strong Yorkshire tea.
Okay. The classics, some of the classics.
Very much the English teas.
The classic teas. Hey, look, you're a fan of the classics in.
I am a fan of the classics, yeah.
So, like, yeah, you're just sticking to the brand, the personal brand. We like it. Oh, amazing. So, was it something that you started, or
It is something that I started. So it was an idea that I had because I I have various projects that I'm working on at any given time. And I was like, it would be really good if I had an accountability space where I could work on these things that also fit with my schedule and was like in a physical place as well. Because I find, like, no hate to digital and online spaces, but I do get energy from other people being in a room with them. Not that I'm an extrovert. I don't want to get that mixed up. I'm not an extrovert, but like when it comes to some things, I do need that in-person energy transference, whatever that is.
yeah.
And so I approached Sasa of Elder Gods and Dragons and was like, hey, I have an idea. We could like collab, like Elder Gods and Dragons and me, and I'll, basically run the thing. Tickets go through your website, we use your space. Because in my mind, it was like, if we have more people going through Elder Gods and Dragons who are, either doing like GMing or writing their own systems, like if they want to playtest things or if they, want to have, events of their own or run games, it's good to have, it's like you can also hire this space as well. So yeah, it was very much a collaboration between myself and Elder Gods and Dragons to get that up and running.
I've been to their venue, I believe, once with Cottage Core Critters when they were announcing their first expansion, which has just come out, and I've just got my copy the other day. I can't wait to read it. Oh, it's so exciting. And yeah, the venue's great. And yes, I can agree. They have delicious tea.
Yeah, the venue is great. It's not as accessible as I would like, but that's just a factor of commercial real estate. It can be quite hard to find things that tick all the boxes.
For sure.
People who build buildings don't think of these things, or they ignore them.
Yeah.
And I have beef with them.
Yeah, I agree. There's been some race stuff around that. And like, it is a thing of, when the building was built and then how much of the times did they care about like people who needed accessibility stuff? Like if it's many, many years ago, not at all. Even these days, maybe not at all sometimes.
It's just, it's one of the things that as a person who does like not a lot of, but like I do a fair few events and things, it is that, constant battle of, trying to find affordable, accessible spaces. Yeah.
I think
bane of my existence. Actually, no, catering. Catering is the bane of my existence. Finding a venue is not too bad compared to catering. It's probably easy. I just personally find it hard.
Well, it's good, and it's exciting that you don't just think about it from just when I heard writers, like, oh, is it people for making like campaigns specifically, or is it just like writing in the TTRPG space as a whole? And that's amazing.
It is, yeah. It is just for, like, we have people working on professionally published modules. We have people working on their own systems. We have people coming in just, brainstorming ideas for, campaigns that they've got coming up or doing world building. Like, it is very much like if you're writing anything in the TTRPG space where a place to do that, like particularly if you're looking for accountability and feedback, because one of the things that I think, can some people can struggle with TTRPG writing is that it is a balance of technical and creative writing, and a normal writing group might not be equipped with the experience to be able to help you with certain things or have ideas about particular things because they might not have the technical side of of TTRPG writing. So yeah, we that's why we exist.
I don't know whether it's like, is it just because it's the community that we're in Australia, but I've been on record saying with myself and Nicholas for our TTRPG review and my own involvements with the Australian roleplay community and their designers and accountability space for the online, which is every second Friday in the ARC Discord. Same. If people from the Writers Guild want to get some extra online time,
absolutely go there.
Yeah.
I have sent people your way because I'm like, some people are like, I can't make Wednesday nights. I'm like, well, we have the designer and accountability resource community that could be a great pickup for you. Yeah.
I think you've nailed it perfectly. It's like there is not just information that you need to write, be coherent, and be expressed to somebody when you're writing a TTRPG. It's a manual. You need to not only have it for like a first timer who's going there to learn something, so it needs to be in a way that's constructive and easily readable and accessible for people, but it also needs to be a reference book. So you can't have massive verbose like teaching pieces and then just like your mechanics or like your grid, your numbers, like in this tiny bit at the end, once every like 5 or 6 pages. Like it needs to be a great balance of those two things. The Player's Handbook for D&D, I never realized how well constructed it is as far as like a technical book until only maybe the last 6 to 12 months. I'm like, it is like beautifully chunked to give you what you need when you need it. And not even just like, oh, it's a chapter for this thing, for that thing, but how it steps through all the parts in its chapters as well is actually really well done. And I mean, they have a whole team of people to do that. So it should be a step above.
And I do think the 2024 Player's Handbook is definitely a step up from the 2014.
Wow. Okay.
I do think it is a little clearer and easier to follow. But yeah, there is definitely like a lot of work that needs to go into presenting that information well. And when it's done badly, you can definitely tell.
Yeah.
What did I pick up recently that I was surprised about the layout? Because layout is one of those things that, can have a big impact on how digestible something is. That's right. I picked up a copy of Kids on Bikes, and there's basically no white space between the text and the margin. And I'm like, this makes it look a lot more dense than it should be. Given its reputation for being like an easy system to pick up, the fact that the layout doesn't really reflect that. Like with something that has a reputation for being easy, you would expect, lots of white space. You would expect, not very heavy paragraphs. You would expect a lot of tables. You would expect a lot of bullet points. And picking up and flicking through Kids on Bikes, I was like, first impression, I was like, the layout doesn't reflect the system's reputation. So that's interesting as well. I'm like, and I'm not a layout person. Like, I think layout is some sort of magic that like a layout artist comes in and like does, and I'm like, how did you do that? That is magic. I don't know how that works, but you can tell as a person, like if you can tell bad layout is what I'm trying to say. Even if you don't have the eye or talent for doing it, good layout, you basically don't even notice it. Like it becomes invisible, but bad layout immediately becomes a barrier.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And there's something you spoke about that I've spoken about so many times now. It's about what the book gives you, whether in the word, the presentation, like its identity versus how it presents itself. It can be I don't even know what it is. It just feels like an imbalance. Like you talk about Kids on Bikes and you want light, fluffy language. It's very easy to get on board. It's very accessible to all ages, groups, whatever. And then you say they've got this massive, dense paragraphs. Like that feels like I'm reading a thesis. It's not broken up. There's no like great graphic imagery that sort of shows the experience that you're having on the pages, like as you're reading through. I think that's like it's such a important thing when it comes to presenting tabletop role-playing games.
And I'm sure I'm sure there was decision points about it as well, because like, as you're in the publishing area, that this is, a thing that, the more pages you have, the more expensive it can get, the more graphics you have, the more expensive it gets, the more color you have, the more expensive it gets. So there can be definitely a temptation for physical products, I think, to try and cram as much stuff in, reducing the margins, getting rid of some of that white space, not having as many bullet points if you can just put them in, a paragraph. But that does make things harder to pass, and it can, if you are going for something that's easy and very easy to get into, very easy to read, might not be the best approach.
Yeah, look, an editor, even if they're not specifically for doing TTRPGs, just to have all the stuff that isn't your technical, like your mechanics or your flavor that you're bringing into your world, having someone like that to go through just to see what do I really need to sort of present the game. Because there's always this balance of, well, how much do I need to present to players and the DM versus how much are they going to bring themselves? Because every TTRPG, someone's going to be bringing some of their own flair to it. Whether it's like, oh, I want to homebrew an additional faction, additional person, a new whatever. Like, there's so many things to bring into it. So it is a tough line to sort of tread.
It is. And like with editing in particular, I think you've got to specify what sort of editing you want, and that might not be looking at layout. Like if you want line editing, basically any editor can kind of do that. But if you want someone to look at it and decide whether it needs any like structural editing, you will need someone who has expertise in TTRPGs specifically to do those kinds of structural edits. Yeah, so it's a weird space to be writing in because it's so small and it's so niche, and like I said, it straddles the technical and the creative, and there's not a lot of resources for that I'm super aware of, other than the TTRPG Writers Guild and the Designers and Accountability Resource Club. Is it club? I always forget what the last C
I
stands
think it
for.
is club. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in the ARC Discord. Those are the two that I know about. There might be others, but yeah.
From what I have obviously never wrote or developed a TTRPG myself, but from the anecdotal evidence that I've had from some designers that I've worked with, especially recently Dorian Blackwood with Midnight and Jubilation, which it should be in the post now, and I'm so excited to play it again. So excited, especially with the new art assets and stuff that they have been very, very mean in not showing me yet. I'm calling you out. It is tough, and like they had people do like sensitivity reading, accessibility reading, and all that, and you can get like little bits and pieces from obviously people who just work in that sort of field. They're going to have some insight as to like how to structure or put those things together, but it isn't like when you're going to like find them online, it's like I can't find a TTRPG editor. Like I don't know of anyone who specializes in specifically that, because you have like rulebook editors for like classic tabletop games, but TTRPGs are a whole different kettle of fish. Like it almost is two professions jammed into one.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm sure there are I'm sure there are editors who have the experience to make themselves into TTRPG editors specifically, but yeah, it is such a small niche as well, and a lot of us are doing things on barely a shoestring budget. Usually we're running on no budget at all, so getting a reader in to do something, getting an editor in to do something, there's not exactly oodles of money trickling through TTRPGs. So yeah, it can be tough. I could understand why someone, even if they had the experience and wherewithal to do TTRPG editing, how it might not be the best niche for them to go into, just simply because there might be a lot of things to do, but there's not necessarily the money to back that up.
Yeah, that niche within a niche of rears itself on your head again, just like it's such a smaller part of already a quite large community. There's a thing of like reading and understanding them, but also I'd say you'd have to be a player or have run the games as well, because if they're going editing, is it going to just be for the written stuff? Are you going to have mechanical help in there too? Like when I put like TTRPG editor on my name badge, like what depth are you sort of looking at? It's a tricky one, and I appreciate so much more now the help that people have asked from myself, just like knowing that I've read and now review them. It's such a tough thing to get across, and it even comes down to like, what do you want people to experience when they play this game? And that can make such a difference in the advice. I would be like, yeah, you want to present this sort of stuff in this way. Way more involved process, I feel, with an editor than for most of the style of editing that I've seen. But then when you specialize like that, specialized things of any kind, they usually cost more than the standard. And TTRPG editors, like you say, shoestring budget, it's probably not going to make it there, which is yeah. You're either going to get enough time with every single little indie and you make $5 here, $5 there, but they just take so long. I just don't think it would work, which sucks. Like it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, unless you've got, a great Kickstarter that has, the funding built in for that kind of editing. But then, what I've noticed, and perhaps you probably have more insight on this, is that the more crowdfunding people are doing, they almost have to go to crowdfunding with a nearly complete product already. So, if people are wanting to see more proof that things are going to be finished, things are going to be fulfilled. So by the time you're hitting the crowdfunding stage, it's almost just a matter of production cost rather than creative costs. So I don't know, maybe you could have budget in there for like, an editor, but yeah, you still need to have the bulk of it done by then.
That's my experience, yeah. Like I would say you're probably looking at between 85 and 95% complete, like ready to go to get printed. For most TTRPGs, when they're like, yeah, we're ready to start like flicking on the campaign live button. That's the experience I've had with like the 5 to 10 or so that I've sort of been not involved with, but just adjacent to, getting feedback, read through their core books and stuff. So yeah, it's so far. And like you say, that this is something I only just learned recently, because again, Dorian with Midnight and Jubilation is when you've got that beautiful layout, like with Affinity or whatever system platform you're using, when you start having to make edits, that gets really messy really quickly. like things start moving up pages, your graphics move out, your like if you've got a paragraph with an image laid into it, that'll get snapped up or move around. So like finding that formatting is something that you spend hours doing. So having someone go through and be like, yeah, let's just restructure this piece here, and the amount of pages that can have like negative impacts for, no,
Yeah. And like,
painful.
With any crowdfunding, people want to see those pretty layouts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So unless you sort of like mock up, just a few pages and you like be like, this is subject to change based on the people still want to see what an approximation of what the final product will look like and have a degree of certainty that that's going to happen and be fulfilled.
Yeah, I think there's definitely ways you could work around it, like having a full page art and then obviously just like a text a page next to it means that you've got a lot of room to move, and like you can just move the text or the next paragraph to the next page if you need to like add or change or anything like that. So there's definitely ways I think you could work around it that would hopefully not mess with your paging too much, or you just make up pages laid out as if you were in the book, but just separate files. Like here's 2 pages where you just chuck those up and just chuck those up, and then if things need to change, you're not messing with the master
imagine that's
file.
what people are doing mostly, is the mock-up pages, but yeah.
Since we sort of started on the crowdfunding side of things, I know you're not a massive designer who's made like 1 million games and whatnot, but what's your experience with going through, or even have anyone ever asked you for some assistance on like setting up a crowdfunding campaign or anything like that?
No crowdfunding campaigns, no. That's something that my exposure to that has mostly been through the Aussie Roll Call podcast and talking to people who have done their own crowdfunding, that kind of thing, and just trying to, extract golden nuggets from them to, pass on to other people who are hoping to do crowdfunding stuff. But in terms of designing games, I've only really designed like a handful. I've designed Fates Less Known, which is like a small duet tarot game where people tell the story of two lovers using tarot. That came to me sort of it was very much a lightning bolt of inspiration kind of moment where I had this idea and then by the end of the day I had a rough draft, which very rarely happens creatively. So I've spent, a couple of years working on that and refining that. In terms of like layout, I did that myself in Canva, and I'm very aware that it is not amazing, but I did it myself and I kept production costs low. So there's that. I, design subsystems for things all the time. Anyone who's run particularly D&D 5e for a long time will know that you're constantly coming up with like little side systems to put into things, or little things that you do. In terms of creating things, I think it's really important, like particularly in TTRPGs, to not get hung up on like creating like a magnum opus. The amount of I haven't seen it recently, which I don't know if that's just, the people that I'm hanging out with or if it is a trend that is on its way out. But about 5 or so years ago, I swear almost like every 10th person I would talk to would be like, oh yeah, I'm creating my own, TTRPG. And it's like this massive system that's going to overthrow D&D. And it was like, is that where you want to start? Like, are you sure this is the first thing you want to design? I'm a big fan of, particularly if you're going to start designing, is starting small. And it's the same with like DMing as well, or GMing. It's like start small. Start with something really small that is almost ridiculously easy. So like if you want to start designing, look at, Grant Howitt's one-page RPGs and make your own, or just hack one of those systems, or Lasers and Feelings, which, is a very commonly hacked game as well. We recently, Logan Timmons, Lucienne Impala, and myself recently ran a 6-week online workshop series for the trans and gender diverse community for game design for self-expression, particularly TTRPGs. And like we did a lot of one-page RPGs and hacks and learning to lean into incompleteness and just giving things a try and making bad things. Like you're allowed to make bad things and have fun with that, just that process. So yeah, in terms of, I can't really remember what your original question was, but like in terms of game design, start small, hack things, put things together. I was talking to, I think it might have been Kate O'Sullivan on the Aussie Roll Call podcast, about how the first thing she ever designed was, she hadn't even done any like homebrew monsters or anything for D&D or like modules or anything. And then the first thing she actually designed was the subclass of Ranger for one of Glenn Watkins' new books. I think it's the Markets one. I can't remember the full title. But yeah, it was like I will homebrew things at the table. Like sometimes I don't even have a stat block. I'm just like, oh, this level, it should be about, +4 to hit. The damage output should be approximately this. Then I'm like, what's its AC? And I'm like, sort of like, I think it's about here.
That'll do. Yeah.
That'll do. That feels right. But I guess that comes with experience and confidence as well.
I guiltily myself have gone on a couple of to raids offline. Obviously, we don't do it on the internet yet. I'm not popular enough to have those opinions yet.
No one rants online.
Nah, never. But the big criticism for D&D is the slog of hit points, like the sack of hit points that you get thrown against. And I have been very guilty of doing like vibes-based encounter ending. So rather than being like, they haven't got through the 600-700 hit points they need to get through to kill this thing, it's like, cool, enough cool things have happened. Something cool is going to end this, and then we'll just go from there. We just sort of like segue through to the next part. It feels like it's done. I think that's one of those things that I got more as I became a more experienced DM, and also just like a more experienced just player as well. Like I knew, like I could feel when I'm like, this is just dragging on. And sometimes you got really awesome like environments, encounters, mechanics in the fights that make it longer without just being like a, do I hit? Yes, no, which can really help. But like if you're just going for like standard slogs, vibes is fine sometimes. Yeah,
it's definitely finding that balance between making it mechanically satisfying for the players and making sure that it feels good. I'm constantly running into, and like this is just the nature of having anything that's RNG based, is that what'll often happen for me is that the final encounter, no matter how much time I put into the design, into making sure everything feels fair and balanced, but it should be, it should still feel like a struggle and overcoming something. The encounter before will always have been more dangerous or deadly. And I don't know why that happens.
Yep.
It's usually the dice's fault, because sometimes I'll be like, this is a medium level encounter, and they will just roll terribly, and I'll nearly TPK them, and then they'll get to the final encounter and it'll be a breeze. And I'm like, the dice gods are playing with me. This is not fair. I put so much effort into designing this final encounter, and I am the one being screwed over here. The encounter before, apparently more deadly. Seems to be the way of things for me, and I don't know why.
They know. The dice gods know. The gods of randomness and chance are just like, nah, that well put together plan? Nah. Oh my lord. Speaking of, so this is something that I always like asking role players. What's your favorite system as far as dice mechanics? Are you like a D20 fan? Are you a dice pool? Do you do just D6s?
I really like dice pools. I think dice pools can be really fun, particularly if you're just looking for a certain number of successes rather than trying to add things together. You might be like, on a 4 to a 6, it's a success, for example, on a D6. And just sort of like very quickly counting up how many of those you have. And I just think there's something nice about picking up a big pool of dice and shaking them all and dropping them, and then sort of like gathering up all the ones that are the right ones into their own little pile. I just find that is very, very satisfying, like it's a physically satisfying thing. Whereas just rolling like 1 or 2 dice and sort of like adding them together or adding bonuses, it's fine, but it doesn't get to that feral energy of shaking a big handful of dice.
There's definitely something to it.
Yeah, there's definitely something to it.
Yeah. I look as a GM, like that's the only way you're doing it through D&D is if you're playing someone with Fireball, or if you're the DM.
Rogue.
Or a rogue, yeah.
Getting high level rogues, just like But one of my favorite things is when players are like, "That's a lot of dice. Stop it!" And I'm
sure
like,
is.
Yeah. Or being like, "Where are all my D10s? Hang on."
Yeah, it's like you just
and they're
ask
like,
no.
"No."
Like, can I have like 9 more D10s? And the table just says nothing. You're like, oh, that's okay. I can roll multiple times. It's okay. We can do that. That's fine. I know that for like twin casting and that, I used to have what you normally get like a polyhedral dice set, and they're just these tiny little D6s. Oh, we're casting a big spell. And the players would see the little pink dice and they'd be like, oh, no, he's pulling out the little dice. That's all the D6 in the world. Look, I have gotten to appreciate the dice pooling system so much more myself as well. Like I played... Now I'm just going to completely forget all the games that use dice pool that I've played recently. Yep, that's just going to happen right now. Fantastic.
I mean, the big one is like VTM.
No, it wasn't that. Wasn't that. No.
Cottagecore Critters uses a dice pool as well.
It does, yeah, it does. It doesn't get to like that massive like fistful of dice as much.
No.
The Alien role-playing game. You want a great stress mechanic? Give that game a read. I've never seen such a beautiful balance of like, these dice would possibly mess me over, because when you gain stress, it gives you a stress dice that you roll every roll that you're doing, and it can still give you successes. Like a 5 and a 6 still succeeds, but a 1 is bad thing. So you're always like, do I take the extra dice for success at things I suck at, or do I just try and get rid of it? It's just beautiful balance that, yeah, I think that's probably been the best implementation. That sort of was the start of me being like, dice pool systems are actually really cool. I think they play into the change of mechanics and like the playing field a lot more than like, oh, you get a +1 to this next thing or a -1. Like adding and taking dice, there's like a tactile feel difference, and that has like the weight to it at the table, which I really appreciate. So we'll go back to, so we've mentioned a couple of times already, Aussie Roll Call podcast.
Yeah, so I actually have a history of podcasting. I had a podcast well before it was trendy. It is gone. I do not believe you can find it on the internet anymore. But when I was starting up my own business, one of the services that I offered people was podcast editing. And so I had that in my back pocket, and being passionate about role-playing games and whatnot, it's like, there should be a podcast. We should start a podcast for ARC. ARC should, the Australian roleplay community should have a podcast. And that kind of sat for a little while because I was like, I don't have the energy to pick up another project. That sounds ridiculous. And then one of my co-hosts, or now co-hosts, Stan Machuca, was like, there should be a podcast. So John, who is the president of the Australian roll call community, was like, roleplay community. He was like, Dan and Stevie, you two should talk. And so we ended up talking. We brought in Kate O'Sullivan as our third host. And then, our main focus for that was to put a spotlight on the Australian TTRPG community, particularly creatives and businesses and game designers and whatnot. Because I think there's a lot of actual play podcasts, and there are some podcasts that are more like sit down and talk about design and things. But our primary desire was to really spotlight and highlight just how diverse of a creative community we have within the Australian TTRPG space. Because I am a firm believer that we kind of, for a country with such a small population, our TTRPG sort of like, it feels like we're punching above our weight in a lot of ways, particularly with some of the some of the, companies that we have, like Storybrewers Role Playing is one that comes to mind. Ravens Ridge Emporium is making great headways internationally as well. It just feels like we've got a lot to offer, and it'd be great to sort of like spotlight that, not only like the big names, but also the smaller names as well. So that's where that sort of started. It's been running for 2 years now. We publish roughly every 2 weeks, depending on things and stuff. But yeah, it's a great interview podcast that we do. We try to talk to someone new every week, or every episode, I should say. And yeah, it's audio only format. Some people have asked for visual, and now it's my turn to rant, but like, I don't like to be chained to watching a device all of the time. I love audio format because it gives me the freedom to be doing other things, whether it is housework or going for a walk or doing the shopping or just anything. Being able to like learn something or listen to people without having to watch a screen is so good. And I also don't want to have because I'm the primary editor of that and producer, so I don't want to also have to edit something visual as well. Being able to focus on just the audio is one. It's easier for me. I'm very quick at it these days, and video editing just takes a lot more time and effort. So yeah, that's my rant as to why it's not yet available in video format. Maybe I'm being, a Luddite of some description, but I'm like, I don't want people to be chained to their devices to consume this content.
Yeah, I can understand that. It was a decision that I obviously run front end for all of the content creation that we make. And I used it as a way for me to be more comfortable being out and about into the space. And like the video editing side, I thought it would be a massive learning curve as well. And it is, but it's sort of like something I've developed and grown with as I've done it. To recommend it, with some great tools out there, it can make it a lot easier.
Like, I can video edit, and I do it quite often. It's just that I find audio editing to be quicker and easier for me. So it was about removing the barriers of the amount of effort that I would need to put in. And yes, I also have a philosophy to try and back that up.
Good to know. It's good to know.
Look, I didn't do, however many years of university and not come out of it being slightly argumentative.
Look, if that's the other thing you got from it, look, we can still call it a win. Yeah. I'm sure you got plenty more, but
a degree that's practically useless. That's not true. There's a lot I got out of my degree. Mostly soft skills, like, text analysis and whatnot.
They help. They help you get to the people more. When you get soft skills, they help you make the connections that make getting the bits that you needed all those hard skills for easier. So like, Yeah, I had the same thing, like degrees that I never used in the intended fashion, like game design degree in the digital aspect, didn't touch tabletop games. Now I help and promote and help read and read through and review tabletop games and role-playing games. Never done it, but I love it. I think there's a lot of principles that you take from the soft skills that you can just translate across. Like the amount of things I have like remembered from like my days of like learning to do lighting and sound in video games. I'm like, there's so many things I can just be like, have you thought about this? How is this meant to be like applied? Like, it's absurd. So soft skills, we love them. Well,
Yeah.
I do. It made me a better person as a whole.
No, I do use my soft skills a lot, and I use some of the hard skills as well. Like if I want to be a real jerk, I'll throw Latin at my players because I studied and taught Latin for a little while. But there are other, softer skills like text analysis and, story structure and, just knowledge of mythology and history and, that kind of thing. Being able to read an academic paper often comes in handy as well. So yeah, I definitely do take a lot from that. It's just funny to tell people that I have a degree in classics and ancient history because like, what good is that?
You just told them you wanted to become the next like Lara Croft or Indiana Jones. Like that was your dream. Like you're inspired by those two people, and that's where you wanted to go. But it was a lot harder to get the rest of it there without just the ancients and histories.
I mean, that wasn't the inspiration. I think the inspiration was more I wanted to be like Dr. Daniel Jackson from Stargate.
Oh my god,
that was
yes.
definitely more of an inspiration for me.
100%. Yep. Just finished a rewatch of SG1. Oh my god, it's amazing. I love it. And Daniel Jackson. Sorry, the many iterations of Daniel Jackson.
From weedy nerd to inexplicably buff.
Yeah. In like a season and a half, and then he becomes like a cosmic being, and then he's not again, and he is again, he's not again. Like, come on, man, just pick a lane. We just finished Atlantis as well, which is also amazing.
I really like Atlantis. I think it does some it's so off topic. It does some interesting things that I think moving away from the American militarized industrial complex.
Yeah.
It explores some more interesting themes that way than SG1 could have. But anyway. Yeah, so off topic.
It's not at all. There's an SG1 TTRPG that's currently sitting on my shelf. It is just adjacent to on topic, so we count it. And if anything, talking about Atlantis, hopefully the guys who made SG1, go make Atlantis. Like add-on expansion, we don't care. Just go make it, because Atlantis world, really cool. The Wraith, amazing enemies. Amazing antagonists. Very differently motivated, I think, as well. With your own like creative space with writing and like professional DMing. That's something I've always been interested in, because when I write and create, I can look at it and be like, that's a very Dylan creation. It just is. Like, there's things that I like in storytelling. How do you find fresh ideas for when you're creating stuff?
It's a variety of things. So I will try and read in a variety of genres and things. It doesn't always happen because sometimes I'll get a hyperfixation and I'll just read 10 books in like the same genre. And I'm like, whoops, that happened. But if I'm being sort of a little more thoughtful about what I'm consuming, what I'm doing, I'll try and, read a variety of things, including nonfiction and essays. And so at the moment, I've got a book on archaic and classical Greek art. I'm reading a collection of Ursula Le Guin essays and short stories. And I'm reading, I think, a historical romance novel. So, like, very much a wide gamut of things. I think inspiration can be found anywhere and in anything. I particularly like places for inspiration and locations. Things that often appear in stuff will be places that I'm somewhat familiar with, and I'll just draw out ideas from that. So I'm currently building out a location for a game, and the location's called the Twilight Priory. And it is loosely based on a lot of time that I've spent at the Abbotsford Convent, and just building in like more shadow and making it grander and making it sort of like deepening it, but like going into a location, sort of like teasing out what I'm feeling in that given moment, or what things and ideas are being evoked. I carry around usually an A5 notebook with me that I just use to scribble ideas in. And I don't mean sort of like, oh, I have an idea, but I will sit and I will just journal stuff. I tend to try and brute force ideas as well. Like if I'm stuck on an idea, or like I don't know where a campaign is going, or like I have this plot hole that I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to fix that, I will start by writing, okay, so I've got this plot hole, this is what it is, and then just start asking myself questions about that and just working through it. And I find that that manual process of pen to paper is a really great way to overcome any kind of writers or creative block and helps to sort of like draw out some of the ideas and like making sure I've got sort of like a fairly wide diet of, other things like other input sources, whether they be, books, or in the past, I've also listened to a lot of audio drama podcasts as well. And things sort of like tend to come together from that. I definitely do see that there are themes that I consistently return to, things that seem to be very, as you said, that's a very Dylan coded thing. There are things that are like, that's a very Stevie coded thing. I didn't realize this until one of the group that I've had for like 6 or 7 years pointed it out, but I tend to put a bathhouse in every single campaign. They're like, why do you do this? I'm like, turns out I just like bathhouses. What can I say? It's, it's like, and it comes from like my studying classics and knowing how important a bathhouse is as a location for a community, for a city, for a town. And so to me, that's just like a normal part of world building. It's like, of course, the city would have a bathhouse, obviously. But to people who, may have more of like a medieval Europe kind of perspective, might be like, that's a weird thing to put in a city. So, there are those sorts of things. But yeah, definitely the just writing through ideas and making it as accessible to me, because I have in the past tried to like go, here is a structure and I'm going to like lay out my journal like this. No, if there is a barrier, like if it's got to look a certain way, if I have to approach it in a certain structure, I know that I won't do it. So it has to be as easy for me to do. So I will just start a new page, put the name of the campaign or the game that I'm journaling about, and write stuff, and then I will go back and put like a little highlighter color in the corner so that I know which one it is for. That's as much structure and layout as I have. But the real benefit of doing that is not that I have a book of ideas, it's that I am processing those ideas. And I often go through a bad idea to get to a good one. So like sometimes the first idea, I was sort of like, there was an NPC that I had a rough idea of, and I knew their affiliation and their connection. I'm like, how am I going to signpost this to the players? What are the possibilities for this? I'm like, I could do a tattoo. And I'm like, that's too easy. It doesn't make any sense for this organization to put tattoos on people. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so working through that and getting to, a better idea by interrogating those ideas on paper has, immeasurably good for the creative process.
The one that the saying that goes with this, like, you've got to be ready to kill your darlings. You're ready to tread over your ideas, step over or step through it, like you're saying, and be like, I'll find something good, hopefully at the bottom. Like once I've dug through that one or gone over it, under it, however you want to like put the metaphor together. The idea, like sometimes it's just the right question about the wrong answer that gets you to the right answer. I feel that 100%, especially from like a GM perspective. This is something that I've always lived with when it comes to role-playing games, is that the NPCs, the people in the game, are people as well. And when I'm really struggling to think of something, I'm like, cool, who are these people? Like taking it away from like, oh, what do I have to create? Like, what are they going to do? Like, what's motivating them? How do they get from A to B? When like 6 months down the track, when they've got their grand plan or like where they see their life, how are they going to get there with the action they're taking today? Is it going to be like tearing apart like the relationships they have with the players? Like, going to help them? Like, what is it they want after they're done here?
One of the warm-up questions that we did in the TTRPG Writers Guild was, take an antagonist, write their villain monologue, just write it out. Just write what's motivating them, stream of consciousness, really get inside them, because, and you will know this from being like a GM as well, is that if you intimately know your antagonists, it becomes really easy to work out where to go from certain places. And often I know that if I'm struggling with an idea, it's because I haven't gone deep enough on the antagonist. They might just sort of like be a shell of an idea, or like, something that I think will be fun to play with, but I haven't really got into them as either a person or a force or, an idea. I haven't gone deep enough. And so that can be, if I'm getting stuck, journaling through that, so good, invaluable. What would they say if they had, their epic villain monologue, if they were sure they were going to overcome the PCs? Would it even be addressed to the PCs? Do they even care about them, or are they just ants in the big scheme of things? Yeah.
And that could be how they run their organization, how they deal with like their lessers. If you've got like a giant conglomerate of bad guys to deal with, like antagonists to go through, but how they are themselves dictates like how they structure everything about what the players are going to interact with. And it's amazing.
It is. And like finding their voice as well will tell you a lot about their values. So like I might not even be going, this is the structure of their organization, but like if they're very obsessed with power and structure and the way that they, articulate that when, I'm sort of journaling through them, that'll impact how that comes across. Or if they're more chaotic and rambunctious, then that's obviously going to have flow-on effects. So like for me, and I know that GMs will approach this differently. Like some GMs might be like, I want to draw an org structure for this. Whereas I'm more like, I want to know the villain's monologue because that will tell me a lot about their personality and character. And from that, I can, extrapolate everything else.
I've done a calendar. That was my first peak bad. I went with the classic. I had a lich.
Yep.
I was like, cool. Well, it's going to take them about a year to like get all the bits they need to like perform their ritual to like convert the world into undead. Grand design. I'm like, cool. Well, I give them a calendar of 12 months and where they have to be at, like how long it'll take them to get from A to B to Z. And that was sort of how I dictated like what happens. And I think that's another thing that I've really enjoyed. It didn't until I got maybe probably like 15 to 20 sessions into that campaign was like, wait, if the players don't interact with this, it still moves. Like the calendar I have, like the days still tick over. Like that's another thing that I've really enjoyed about like bringing that NPCs are people. They will, if they're like, hey, meet me in town and we'll go talk, have a beer and we'll go talk about this thing. And you just go off and do something. It's like, you're going to be mad at you when you get back. It's like, Ben, I was waiting for you. Where were you? You stood me up.
Yeah. The only downside of that is it often relies on me either remembering to remember that has happened with that NPC.
Yeah.
I do try to take notes after sessions because I'm terrible at taking notes during sessions. So I tend to knock out a couple of paragraphs after a session so I can be like, okay, that's what happened.
Oh, yeah. I'm very guilty about myself. Or like the classic question at the very start of every session. So who's going to recap us this time? Because I need to do other things, which is a total ploy so I can listen into what they remember so I can piecemeal it together myself. Yeah.
Also a classic. Or like the sometimes the what I remember as being important is different from what they remember as being important. I never really prepare more than a session in advance of anything. I might have like a general outline of like where the arc is going or, what the rough outline. But in terms of specifics, I like to follow what the players find interesting and what latches onto them and make sure that their decisions have impact on the story. And if everything is planned out too particularly, then it doesn't give me the freedom to do that. Whereas if I have more of like an overarching idea, if I have an understanding of the antagonist and what their goals and motivations are, I don't even need to have like a specific plan for them exactly, but it allows me to be a lot more responsive to what the players are finding fun in doing. And it gives them a lot more freedom as well. And I think it makes their decisions more impactful because, we follow them each time. They're not following my story. I'm following theirs.
That speaks to me so much. And I feel like when I learned that just by experience, I think I overnight became a better, it's almost like a facilitator role when you're GMing for anything.
Listening is half of GMing.
Yeah. Remembering? Nah. Like, no. Listening, though. You just gotta listen.
Because I think it's one of those things. It's like to be seen as, to be known. And when you're listening and responding to what the characters are doing, it makes them feel seen. And it makes for a good player experience because you're acknowledging, hey, you've made this decision. This is what you're drawing out. And I think that is how you take your GMing from being good to being better. It's not about writing better stories. It's not about, mastering certain mechanics. It is really about that human interaction of, I've heard what you're saying, and here is how I'm weaving that in and propelling it forward. And I think that is something that gets overlooked in a lot of GMing advice.
One of my new players who's like brand new to role-playing games. So one of our first like cool NPC encounters, I had a barbarian who had this, it was a granite handle with this weird stone that they could morph into like an axe head or a sword blade or like a spear pike with just like a wave of their hand. He's like, I want one of those. The fighter was like, I want one of those. And after this fight, I want to talk to him and find out where I want to get that. And I'm like, cool, I've got a great hook for later that I can be like, cool, what's this weird rock? What is it? And it's for now, it is like it's part of like a living earth elemental's body that is then being morphed and changed. So it's like this house of dwarves that are imprisoning and then like taking bits of living elementals to like make into these warped out weapons. So it's like it's this moral dilemma of like, well,
yeah, so now
that's
they
a
have to make
horror
this
thing.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just like, oh, this is a cool weapon. And like, if we take them all out, if we stop this from happening, are the weapons going to be there? Like the thing I want, is that going to be something that I get to keep? Or is it just going to stop working because the elementals are free or whatever? It's that beautiful
And
mesh
sometimes,
of like, it's amazing.
And sometimes these things don't even occur to you until like you say something off the cuff and then a player gets really fixated on, then you start thinking about it and ideating on what that actually is. That's where real magic happens, is that back and forth between players. And I do love like a dilemma. I was running for a group of kids and they got hung up on trying to find a dragon egg because they're kids. And then last session, they had a really robust philosophical conversation between them all, not with an NPC, about the ethics of going into a dragon's lair and stealing an egg. Like, is that ethical? And I'm like, this is great. I'm having a great time. I'm not in this scene or this conversation, but good for them. And so whether or not they decide to follow up on that quest, because like they made a connection with someone who knew where, a dragon might be and she might have eggs. And now they're like, do we really want to do that? Is that something we should really do? And I'm like, this is great. That none of that was my idea.
Yep.
I just held the space and like put the NPCs in front of them that they wanted to talk to, or sort of, and yeah, they did all of that ideating themselves. That the thing I love about TTRPGs over, say, just writing a book is that the creative space between that happens when you are creating with others at the table is so much more magical. And it gives me so much more energy than trying to sit down and, write myself. I've written, a couple of books that have sat in draft form. They're both terrible, but that process was so much harder than creating at the table with others. Like it's just so easy and so much better than anything I could come up with by myself, for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like having another writer or like inspiration point in the room. You don't even have to come up with the ideas. They tell you what they want. It's like having a novel that gets released to 5 people and they're like, it's the pick their own adventure and it gets written as they go through it. Like people, if you haven't played tabletop role-playing games, just do it. Just get on it. Like it's such a amazing experience beyond anything else you'll get in your like gaming, whether it's digital, whether it's tabletop. It's the greatest experience you'll ever have.
1,000%. Yeah. And for like players that are struggling to make that leap, because I've run a lot of tabletop role-playing games for new players who might not have that play style or not have seen that play style, for example. So they might expect it more as the DM is telling you a story, you make certain decisions, and the DM tells you the next bit. Whereas I like to sort of like begin to get people to world build with me. One of the things I do with my shorter campaigns is I'll give people NPC sheets so they can make that NPC that's linked to their character, and then I can take that NPC and they may or may not show up later. Sometimes they don't come up, sometimes they end up being, the main antagonist, depending on whether or not it just happens to fit in. But I think training people, like teaching people that there is space at these tables for them to co-create as players is and it obviously does depend on the system as well. Some systems lean into it more than others.
Yep.
But that there is definitely magic to be had there.
In the years that I've like brought on new players and like done one shots with people, there was a Christmas themed one shot that I ran a couple of years ago for a friend of mine. And she had a lot of anxiety about coming to the table. Like, I don't know anything about the game. And I remember having a conversation with them. Like, all I want you to do for me is tell me what you want, something fast, something range, like the archetypes of the classes, and then cool, pick a race that you think looks awesome. Here's a big list of them. And then on the day, all I'm going to get you to do is just talk to me about what you want to do. The mechanics will come later, but what you want to do in that moment is the only thing you need to worry about. If the game system allows for it, which D&D is very flexible in that way, and I've got so many like home thrown in rules that we can make anything work as long as it's feasible.
Yeah.
That's all we need to worry about. Everything else will come with time, because nothing you can do at the table is going to be wrong, like objectively wrong. It's just about what do you want in this moment, and we will run with that. If good, bad, ugly, the thing is, the dice ultimately decide what it is. So you can't plan for anything to go well or to go bad.
Exactly. It's like you might be playing entirely to your character's strongest bonuses, and the dice might still be like, absolutely not. You might have intelligence as a dom stat and decide to roll a history check and get a natural 20, and suddenly you know everything you needed to know on that particular topic. So it's like, yes, there is a way to play your character quote unquote optimally, but ultimately you are like in a system like D&D, other systems are not the same. I do think sometimes that other games that are less reliant on RNG can be better starting points for people to get into tabletop role-playing games.
For sure, yeah.
Simply because they've got so much more control over their character and they're not at the whims of the dice. I'm thinking particularly of Good Society. I think does that really well. It's very easy to get into. It has really rich sort of like world building, like having like the NPC cards in particular is so good. And it's just really easy for people to get more into role playing rather than rolling dice. You can't play your character badly. You're just telling me what your character wants to do. There's no dice. There's no nothing. There's no luck here. The other player characters might react differently. The NPCs might react differently. But yeah, you're not at the whims of a random number generator.
Speaking of, and this is one I've not asked the other people who've done roleplay, but you just mentioned dice and dice pools. How are your thoughts? And I'm actually much of a bigger fan than I thought I'd ever be of using like a standard 52 card playing deck instead of or with a set of dice. How have you found? What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, so it really depends on the game. I have played games that do use cards. I'm thinking in particular, actually, most of the games that I've played that use cards are tarot cards in particular. I'm thinking of Relics uses tarot cards. I've run that a couple of times. But in terms of like standard 52 cards, a lot of the games that I've played that use that are more solo games. The thing that I think, and someone's probably mentioned this to you before, the thing that's great about cards is that they can have memory. So like if you remove, say, the ace of clubs from the deck and put it in a discard pile, the ace of clubs can't be drawn again. So whatever that is associated with, the deck now has that memory. So there is that. Actually, there is a game that I have played, not recently, but Yeziba's Bed and Breakfast.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the games in that, because like each chapter sort of has like different mechanics and things. So like you're never really sort of playing the same game twice. A lot of those will use playing cards for that. I think it is, depending on the game design and the ethos of the game, I think playing cards are a fantastic mechanic. Like I said, they can have memory as well. I've got the deck of the Raven's Ridge Emporium. Promised I'm not sponsored by them. I've got their solo role-playing cards, which have like words and prompts and images and whatnot on them. I use them constantly at the table to sort of like prompt myself, or like if there's ever a fortune teller NPC, I'll often sort of like just spread them out and get them to tell me what the image is, and then I'll give them a fortune reading based on that image. But they can also be used as playing cards as well. But yeah, I tend to use those at the table with others more than as solo role-playing cards, which I know is not their design intention, but that's just how I find I like to use them.
You mentioned card memory, and I think that you've nailed it on the head. And like once you take a piece out and it's no longer accessible, that's like your pool of successes or like options that just get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. I want a high-tension horror game that just uses a deck of 52 playing cards, that just you can feel that as the deck gets slimmer and slimmer. I haven't found something yet, but I was inspired by one of the roleplay games that Nicholas and I reviewed from, again, it's not, I swear it's not Raven's Ridge sponsored, The Sins of the Father. It has that deck thinning. It's always that how much are you willing to give up or trade away to the dark forces to get what you need or get what you want out of either like environments, NPCs. And that to me, like that weight of risk reward, I think is something that cards bring in such a more, not only the fact that it is like you're removing options and like the chance of success, but it's tangible. Like when you see that deck getting slimmer, you're like, ooh, it's not like rolling the dice and leave it to the chance. Like you pick up the D20, you roll it, it's like, it's the same choice every time. It's very easy. I'm going to try the thing. I'm going to do it because I have nothing that's going to like make me second guess. That deck of cards though, yeah, no.
Yeah, well, it makes me think like, it happened, like, I feel like this is a design philosophy that comes through a lot more in horror than in other genres, just simply because of that tension building, right? And I'm thinking of games like Dread, where you're physically seeing the tower get more fragile as more choices are made, or something like 10 Candles, where the candles are being extinguished one by one. That depletion and that fragility works so well in horror. as it sort of escalates. So yeah, deck of cards, totally.
I've done a oil lantern for when I ran Dark Vigil for the first time. The tension built around the table when I was like, cool, I guess we'll just take out a little more oil after you guys take it like an hour off. We'll just like, I wasn't using it like an actual burning, it just had like a flame that would just like slowly descend the paper. I'm like, cool, we'll just pull out a couple more hours there. Oh, that's looking
seeing things deplete. Yep.
That's great. And it gets to that, you can see the erratic nature of like decision making, the options that they weigh up, like how they're going to impact. Like it's such a beautiful thing that I don't think you get from most standard fantasy, high fantasy settings, because the tension is so easy to sort of just like take out, because you usually have so many other people's places and like avenues to get information and get things out. But horror is like that isolation feeling, whether you are in like a place where you are on your own with like your group of people, or on your own, or even a town. Like there's always that aspect that just separates you from any options or anything outside of this has to happen or we're all gone. Everything is just wasted. I love it. Absolutely love it.
And horror design is its own particular beast, right? Because you've got to find that fine balance between giving players enough options that they feel like they can do things, but also giving them choices that allow them, like, that let them be okay with things going wrong for their characters.
Yes.
It's something, I think it was an episode of Quinn's Quest where he was talking about the design philosophies of Mothership and like how Mothership manages to find that balance really well. In like, you could kind of churn through player characters in Mothership so you don't get super attached to your little guy because you're like, this is going to end so badly for them and I'm here for it. Like, bring on the next one kind of deal. It is a struggle for people in the horror genre to do that, I think. Because, players have a tendency to want to just protect their little guy, make sure they're safe and okay and not take any risks.
Another game that did, and again, shout outs to Alien RPG. Oh my God. If you're a horror or like an Alien fan, going to play their pre-written modules feels like you're playing through a movie in the way that it ebbs, flows, character. I cannot shout out enough how amazing that game felt to play, and narratively, like beat for beat, it felt like I was watching the first or second film just over again. It's exceptionally well done. But what they do is they have your character sheet, and the person who ran it for me, thank you, Lucanus, he hands us all the character sheet. I'm like, cool, there's my health. I have 4 hit points. That's not a lot for a tabletop role-playing game. Right next to it, it has your weapon. I'm like, that's a pistol. That does 3 to 4 damage. That sounds really bad, because there are people who are like soldiers who have bigger guns, and there are aliens, God knows where. So like that feeling of fragility as well, even without having one of those mechanisms. Like I looked at the page and I'm like, if someone shoots me, I'm going to die. Like I'm just going to die. So I'm going to, like, how that bakes in how I react to the game itself is, can't get it in D&D because sacks of hit points are a running theme.
They are, and like they're fundamentally different design philosophies.
They are, yeah.
They're aiming for very different experiences, you know. So, and that's something that I've definitely grappled with, like, because I write a lot of homebrew adventures and stuff. It's like, yes, I could tell a horror story in D&D, and it can be okay, but I find that it just doesn't. The underlying design philosophy of the game makes it really hard to hold that tension and that fragility. Without sort of like putting a really heavy hand on the scales and making encounters and stuff really unfair, which you can do in D&D, but I just feel like it doesn't fit in well with the design philosophy of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like they tell you in the Dungeon Masters guys, like, cool, this is sort of what a standard adventuring day looks like. They give it to you in like black and white. This is sort of what you're aiming for a
no
session.
One plays it like that. No one plays it like that.
They don't. But at least they try.
Everyone's like, we had one big battle. We need to rest. It's like,
yeah,
great. Unless you're in the middle of a dungeon crawl, there's no way you can enforce that adventuring day. It is unrealistic. So yeah, you often end up, and this is something that I've had to grapple with as a professional DM, is like, yeah, you end up with like 1 or 2 big encounters, but you don't really get those little, you know, piecemeal things that wear down the resources of the party, unless they decide to long rest in an ancient dragon's tomb. Shout out to the Tall Order. You know what you did.
Someone got crisped after that. They got burned.
Someone got possessed. The wizard got possessed, and then
great.
Yeah, started just going ham on the party, and they were like, "Yeah, we long rested in Ancient Dragon's Lair. This is on us."
Yeah. Okay. So this is a question we like to ask as we're wrapping down everything usually in our episodes. So let's go back to the very first time that you were like, ooh, these role-playing games, I think I'm going to GM these. If you could take a single piece of advice, a lesson learned, or information, not a conversation, from your brain today and just like plug it straight into your head from that many years ago, what would it be?
Ooh,
It's a tough one.
smaller. Start smaller.
Ooh, okay. In what capacity do you mean?
I think so the first time I started running games, I picked up The Lost Mines of Phandelver because that was what the starter kit was for that particular time. And as a new GM, this might surprise some people, but as a new GM, I actually found that quite hard. I felt like it was longer than most things that I was expecting. I found it hard to keep information in my head, and it was just too much. I think I could have started with like, a one-shot adventure, to sort of dip my toe in rather than try and do something big. Rather than promising my friends a campaign, I should have promised them just a couple of sessions, 1 or 2 sessions. Start smaller, because I think I remember being under a lot of stress, finding it really difficult to be like, oh, I have to remember how big this room is, how tall this cavern is. I have to remember that there's this trap here, and I have to remember this and whatnot. And it just felt very overwhelming. And I could have started smaller. I could have made it a lot easier on myself.
Okay. I love that. As a almost exclusively theater of the mind DM myself, yeah, I wholly agree. My first run was a campaign that lasted 6 to 8 years. COVID kind of cut that in half. There was like a couple of stopgaps, but still, like I understand wholeheartedly what you mean. Yeah. I definitely became a better dungeon master because of like all the experiences I had. And honestly, the stuff that we did could have just been a series of like short campaigns or one shots, because that was just the best way I knew how to do it. But yeah, no, that's great advice. Absolutely smashing advice. Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything that you would like to shout out, plug, or promote while you're here before we jump off for today?
But the only things I have to plug are, if the Melbourne queer TTRPG community sounds like something that, suits you, feel free to jump over to melbqueerttrpgs.com. You can find us in all the places there. You can also follow me on Instagram if you would like to, which is just Stevie Schafer. It's just my name. And yeah, those are like the main places that I hang around. But yeah, would love to see people at the either a Thirsty Sword Lesbians one shot if that is also of your jam, and if people want to, they can tune in to watch myself and other people play Thirsty Sword Lesbians on the Let's Roll for Dragons channel over on Twitch on Sunday, the 30th of August.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Stevie. It's been a pleasure. I know we always have a great chat when we do, and I'm looking forward to catching up at either Conquest, if you're there, or PAX later this year.
Lovely to talk to you, Dylan.
Thanks
for having me.
And that's all we have for you today, guys. So I hope you've learned something new. It's a little bit of a different one, but look, a great guest to have, especially if you're a aspiring GM or just someone who really likes role-playing games. So I have been Dylan, representative from Indiverse.io. If you're looking to check out some new independently designed tabletop games, role-playing games, come check out Indiverse.io. That's INDIVERSE.io. Or if you're a game creator and you want someone that's going to represent you and let you have a space to sell your games that gives you a great opportunity and deal and great community space, come check us out. Yeah, or you can reach out to us at hello@indiverse.io. But yes, I've been Dylan, one of the founders of Indiverse, and this has been Across the Indiverse. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.